Do you want to know the fastest way to make a narcissist lose interest in you completely? Then stay with me, because this is where everything starts to shift. Here are 7 powerful things that can make them back off, walk away, and leave you alone for good. And the last one is so strong, so final, that they may begin avoiding you like you carry something they cannot afford to touch. A lot of people think the only way to deal with a narcissist is to fight harder, argue louder, or prove they are right. But that is exactly what keeps the narcissist attached, because it feeds the one thing they always want more of: your attention, your emotion, your energy, your struggle. What actually works is the opposite. You become calm. You become peaceful. You become deeply unbothered. Suddenly, you are no longer exciting to them. You stop giving off the emotional charge they feed on, and that changes everything. Let me be clear before we go any further. This is not about revenge. It is not about games. It is not about trying to hurt someone back. This is about protecting your peace, your power, and your sanity. Narcissists feed on reaction. They live off your fear, your anger, your tears, your confusion, your sadness. As long as you keep reacting, they have a reason to come back for more. In their mind, you belong to them. Not as a real person with freedom, but as a source of emotional supply they believe they can access anytime they want. But here is what they never want you to fully understand. That illusion breaks the moment you stop playing your part in their game. The second you stop reacting, stop chasing, stop explaining, they start losing control. And once that control slips, their interest starts to die. The first thing you must do is stop giving emotional reactions. This is the fuel they run on. They do not really care if you love them or hate them. What matters to them is that you still feel strongly enough to respond. If you cry, beg, argue, defend, or try to make them understand, you are handing them exactly what they came for. Think about a spoiled child throwing a tantrum. If the child gets attention every time, the behavior keeps growing. Narcissists do something very similar, except now it is wrapped in adult words, adult cruelty, and emotional games. When you react, they feel important, they feel powerful, they feel in control. But when you stay calm, when your face stays neutral, when your energy stays flat, something inside them starts to crack. At first, they will push harder. Expect that. They may insult you more. They may say things designed to sting. They may even pretend to change, pretend to care, pretend to soften. It is all a test. They are trying to pull a reaction out of you one more time. But when you give them nothing, no anger, no panic, no excitement, no visible pain, they begin to deflate. Because what is the point of performing if the audience has stopped watching? And this is important. Real power is not fake indifference. Real power is reaching a place where their words, their drama, their approval, and their attacks truly mean less and less to you. That quiet shift is not weakness, it is strength. It is the kind of strength they cannot control. And once they feel that, the whole dynamic begins to change. Keep listening, because the next step closes even more doors. The second thing is real no contact, done the right way. Many people say they are doing no contact, but they leave tiny doors open without noticing. And those tiny doors are enough. Real no contact means no communication, no checking, no secret curiosity, no emotional doorway left unlocked. People often break no contact in ways they do not even recognize. They reply to a message through someone else. They ask mutual friends what the narcissist is doing. They look at social media from another account. They drive past familiar places. They keep one small channel open just in case. But just in case is exactly where the problem lives. Picture a burglar walking down a quiet street. One house has cameras, lights, locked doors, and a loud dog. Another house has a cracked window and no alarm. Which one looks easier? Narcissists think the same way. They go where access is simple. So your no contact must be complete. Block the number. Block the social media. Change your number if you must. Tell mutual friends clearly that you do not want updates and you do not want messages passed along. And here is the part people struggle with most. You also have to stop checking on them. Every time you peek at their page, every time you ask about them, every time you keep them alive in your attention, you weaken your own boundary. Even if they do not know it directly, the connection is still alive inside you. But when you go truly silent, something powerful happens. You become unreachable. You become invisible. And narcissists cannot easily manipulate what they cannot see, cannot contact, and cannot pull back into the cycle. They may test the wall a few times, let them. If the wall never moves, eventually they start looking elsewhere. The third thing is to stop defending yourself and stop explaining yourself. This one is hard because narcissists are experts at making you feel like you must clear your name. They accuse you of things you never did. They twist what you said. They rewrite what happened. They throw out lies, half-truths, and strange blame just to keep you talking. And the more you explain, the deeper you sink into the trap. The moment you start defending yourself, you are accepting the frame they created. You are acting as if they have the right to judge your worth and decide who you are. That is the trap. If they call you selfish and you rush to prove you are kind, they win. If they say you never cared and you start listing everything you did, they win again. Why? Because their power comes from your need to be understood by them. But imagine what happens when you stop. Imagine they throw out an accusation and you simply say, "That is your opinion." Imagine they try to bait you into a long argument and you refuse to enter it. Suddenly the whole machine begins to stall. They lose the ability to pull you into circles. They lose the ability to keep you busy defending a truth they were never going to respect anyway. This does not mean you allow harm in situations that affect your job, your safety, or your children. In practical matters, defend yourself clearly and professionally. But in personal emotional warfare, silence is often stronger than any explanation. You do not need their permission to know who you are. You do not need their understanding to stay grounded in the truth. And when they see that their words can no longer shape your self-image, something inside them gets frustrated. That frustration matters. It tells them the old hooks are not working anymore. The fourth thing is to become truly indifferent, not fake calm, not forced coolness, real indifference. Narcissists are often very good at sensing when you are pretending. You can say you do not care, but if your energy still reaches toward them, if you still check, still wonder, still hope, they feel it. Real indifference happens after deep healing. It happens when they no longer feel emotionally important to you. You stop wondering who they are with. You stop checking if they regret what they did. You stop hoping they miss you. They become emotionally irrelevant. Just another person in the world who no longer has access to your heart, your focus, or your peace. But to get there, you usually have to grieve. You have to mourn the dream, the promise, the image, the version of them you thought was real. That part hurts. It can feel like mourning someone who never truly existed the way you believed. But once you move through that pain, clarity begins to appear. You start seeing them differently, not as all-powerful, not as mysterious, not as someone above you. You begin to see the insecurity underneath the mask. You begin to understand that their cruelty comes from emptiness and their need for control comes from fear. And when you finally see that clearly, you stop taking their actions so personally. That is when their hold begins to dissolve. True indifference is not hatred. Hatred still creates a bond. Hatred still keeps them alive in your emotions. Indifference is quieter than that. It is a clean, steady neutrality. You stop trying to figure them out. You stop trying to save them. You stop trying to be chosen by someone incapable of healthy love. And in that moment, you start becoming free in a way they can no longer reach. The fifth thing is to turn your focus back to your own life, fully and without apology. This is where healing stops being an idea and starts becoming something real. You stop living in reaction to them. You stop posting just to make them jealous. You stop making choices based on what they might think. You stop hoping to run into them so they can see how well you are doing. You stop replaying scenes in your mind and rehearsing conversations that will never bring peace. Instead, you return to yourself. You start new projects. You reconnect with good people. You take care of your body. You sleep better. You create routines that belong to you, not to the chaos they trained you to live in. You begin to build a life that feels calm, honest, and yours. And something beautiful starts to happen. Your energy changes. You become lighter, stronger, more settled. There is a glow that comes from someone who is no longer begging to be seen by the wrong person. Narcissists hate that kind of shift because it destroys the fantasy that you still need them. They want you stuck. They want you confused. They want you hurting, checking, missing them, wondering if they will come back. But when your life begins to expand without them, their power starts to shrink. You are no longer orbiting their drama. You are creating your own peace. You stop comparing yourself to them. You stop trying to win in their game. You stop caring if they see your success. That is huge, because peace becomes your shield. It protects you from being pulled back into the old cycle. And once your life becomes fuller than the pain they left behind, they stop feeling like the center of your world. That is not just recovery, that is transformation. And the next step takes that freedom even deeper. The sixth thing is to stop trying to expose them or change them. This one is painful because your sense of fairness wants justice. You want people to know what they did. You want them to admit the truth. You want them to finally understand the damage they caused. You may believe that if you gather enough proof, say it clearly enough, or show enough evidence, they will finally see themselves and apologize. But this is where so many people lose precious time. Narcissists often do not respond to truth the way healthy people do. Instead of reflecting, they usually twist the story. Instead of taking responsibility, they often turn themselves into the victim. When you keep trying to expose them, you may think you are bringing light, but to them, it can feel like attention, drama, and fresh material. They use your pain as proof that you are unstable. They use your anger as a weapon against you. They thrive when you are still chasing justice from someone who has no real interest in honesty. The moment you stop trying to force them to understand, something powerful happens inside you. You stop standing in a mental courtroom trying to prove your case to a judge who was always corrupt. You stop spending your energy on someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. And that surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the bitter kind at first, but it becomes peaceful later. You accept that they may never change. They may never tell the truth. They may never give the apology your heart once longed for. But your healing does not need their honesty to begin. Your freedom does not depend on their awakening. Once you understand that, you stop handing them your energy in the name of closure. You step out of the war. And when you stop fighting to make them see the truth, they lose one more way of feeding on your attention. Now we come to the seventh and most powerful step, the one that hits the deepest. It is radical invisibility. It is complete emotional removal from their world. This goes beyond standard no contact. It goes beyond saying, "I do not care." It means you treat them as if they no longer exist in your reality. You do not say their name. You do not tell stories about them for emotional release every day. You do not keep their shadow alive in your room, your thoughts, your speech, or your routines. And if life ever places you in the same space, you look through them as if they are empty air. That may sound extreme, but to a narcissist, being treated like a nobody is almost unbearable. They are deeply attached to feeling important in your story. Even negative attention still tells them they matter. Anger tells them they got inside you. Tears tell them they still have power. But invisibility tells them something they cannot handle. It tells them they are nothing here. It tells them they no longer take up space in your mind. And that can shatter the fragile image they work so hard to protect. When you give them a blank stare, a quiet presence, a complete absence of emotional recognition, it lands harder than arguments ever could. They rely on the idea that you remember them, react to them, and carry them somewhere inside your emotional world. But when they feel that you have removed them from that space, they often begin to avoid you. Why? Because your calm emptiness reflects something they fear most, their own lack of importance. And here is the deeper layer of this final step. Radical invisibility is not just external, it is internal. It means becoming emotionally unavailable as a source of supply. They text, you do not respond. They insult, you do not flinch. They praise, you do not melt. They bait, you stay grounded. No anger, no longing, no pity, no explanation, just stillness. This is where real freedom begins to feel real in your body, not just in theory, not just in words. in your nervous system, in your mornings, in your sleep, in the way silence starts to feel safe again. When you become emotionally unavailable to manipulation, you do more than make one narcissist lose interest. You stop attracting that kind of energy in the same way. Toxic people can feel when there is no supply to take. They sense when someone is no longer easy to provoke, control, or drain. And when that happens, they move on. Meanwhile, healthier people begin to feel safer around you. You become magnetic to peace instead of chaos, and that shift is life-changing. At first, healing can feel strange. You may miss the intensity. You may miss the emotional highs and lows, even though they were hurting you. That does not mean it was love. It often means your body got used to the roller coaster. That is what deep emotional conditioning does. It makes chaos feel familiar. It can make pain feel like connection. But as time passes, the fog begins to lift. You sleep more deeply. You breathe more freely. You smile for no reason. You feel safe in your own room. That quiet you once feared starts becoming your sanctuary. And then something even bigger happens. You begin to see how much of your life was spent trying to earn love from someone who could not give it in a healthy way. You see how often you explained, hoping to be understood, only to be pulled into more confusion. You realize the cycle was never really about your worth. It was about their need for control. That realization is painful, yes, but it is also freeing. Because once you see the pattern, you can stop blaming yourself for surviving it.